Over a green and pleasant landscape, a significantly more ominous green ball flies. Well, maybe not flies. Those Borg are built to last, though, like genocidal Tonka toys. Despite a landing Tom Paris would be proud of, only a few of them have done a dead. 3 of the survivors are milling about, unsure what to do without clear instructions, so a distinctly familiar 4th gets to her feet and takes charge. Guiding the others away from a soon-to-kaboom shipwreck, she leads them deeper into the forest. We're also taking one of the corpses, too. I guess they could be giving them a proper burial, but I suspect the real reason is somewhat more pragmatic. Who knows when they might need spare parts? Voyager's docked at a trading hub. We're also having some sort of open day, visitors from all over the place taking a poke around our ship in the name of cultural exchange. The real reason for diplomacy might be all of the shit that we've been given by our guests. Janeway's ready room is filled with offerings, though I suspect any weapons have already mysteriously disappeared into one of her private stashes. That said, the visits are not entirely positive. Tuvok arrives with a security report, and one that's significantly longer than would normally be the case. Some of our guests see rules as more of a suggestion than a requirement. That doesn't stop Janeway and Chakotay considering the whole venture as an overall success, possibly because none of the thefts or criminal damage involve anything of theirs. Chakotay makes a joke as Tuvok departs, and we see once again that Vulcans are a species capable of saying "fuck you" with their eyes. We move to Astrometrics, and begin with a shot that was definitely framed so we could get a good view of Naomi's face, honest. The owner of the lumps has promised to have lunch with her, and, after a little cajoling, does so. The overcrowding of Voyager is having a negative effect on Seven, the experience being a little too reminiscent of her time with the Borg. A distraction arrives in the form of this guy who, after confirming her identity, opens up a case containing electronic gubbins that carry more than a hint of Borg about them. Seven's response suggests familiarity, prompting a flashback of the crash we saw before the title sequence. I note one of the drones in it bears a striking resemblance to the guy carrying the case, though with significantly less face furniture and a better tan. That suggests he's going to be important, so let's do Season 6's inaugural spin of the Wheel of Names, so we know what to call him. Our salesman's name will now be... Schrodinger's Labradoodle by Ensign Flinty. Seven recognizes the case's contents as brainial implants, and specifically the ones from her unimatrix. As there are 7 of them and her original group numbered 9, you could argue this technically qualifies as a full reunion. Schrodinger's Labradoodle claims to be a merchant wanting to sell them, and definitely not a member of that original group. Seven seems not to recognize him despite the visible scarring over his right eye being a pretty solid clue, but it's fair to say she has other things on her mind. She takes the case and passes the bill on to Janeway, which is reasonable enough when you consider she's given 2 years of free labour, then leaves to look at them more closely. Naomi tries to get the guy's name, but he blanks her and leaves. Maybe he's dodgy, maybe he's just embarrassed at being called Schrodinger's Labradoodle. I suspect it's the former, as he does brainial talking with some other people, who all have various degrees of scarring by the way, to tell them that Seven's taken the bait and they should all get ready to bollocks up Voyager's security. Flashback time again. Seven's little group is stripping that dead Borg down for parts. One of the drones, who looks suspiciously similar to the guy that Schrodinger's Labradoodle was having a brainial chat with, stops in confusion. He's had a thought that this is wrong because he's desecrating a corpse, and that's against the beliefs of his species. Seven stomps on it, and they all agree that they're Borg before going back to work. The seed of doubt has been planted, though, and I suspect there's a lot more soil for that seed to grow in with people who weren't assimilated as children. Back in the present, our former drones are having a brain chat about the plan. There's some discord over the best course of action, with one worried about harming Seven. A bit of an argument ends with a reluctant agreement from Monocle Scar to proceed, and a significantly more eager yes from Robojoran. Seven started a scan on one of those brainial implants, and, as it's going to take a few hours, chooses to regenerate. The former drones all detect her going offline, and Monocle Scar uses his brainial implant to dick with Voyager's security, though perhaps not well enough if the beeping next to Tuvok is any indication. As the bridge crew try to figure out what's going on with their systems, the group have managed to get into Seven's cargo bay. Monocle Scar is hesitant again, causing Robojoran to remind him that this is the only way for them to become individuals. Schrödinger's labradoodle steps up and puts Borg tubes into Seven's neck, causing her to wake up and twat the bastard. The others make it an uneven fight by piling in, so we decide to cheat too by having Tuvok turn up with a security team to poop yellow all over them. Let's see Chakotay try and make a joke out of this security breach. Another flashback, and this time we're having a campout. The fire prompts memories in Seven of doing something similar with her dad. The others chip in with memories of their own, and they spiral into realizing what's happened to them. A panicking Seven overrides them and orders no further communication. They comply, but their looks suggest that this may not be a permanent solution. We're in sick bay, and the doc is checking over Schrödinger's labradoodle. Whoever worked on this guy was a quack compared to the doctor. The former drones are not only covered in scars, but are internally damaged from the surgical work. And there's one other curious feature the doc has found. The connection they share isn't from brainial implants, which I guess explains why there were 7 of them in the case. It's instead an organic feature. A part of their brains have adapted to form a telepathic network between the 3, their own tiny collective. 7 also recognizes them now, the brainial link with Schrödinger's labradoodle having tipped her off. Janeway thinks it's time for a chat. We wake them to ask what the flying fuck they think they were playing at. The 3 explain that 7 has data they need. When they crashed together, those flashbacks we've been seeing, something happened on the planet. After they were reassimilated, they discovered they'd been changed. As well as the connection to the entirety of the hive mind, they also had their own mini-collective with just the 3 of them. It was due to the latter that they were able to escape the Borg, but while they're free of the larger collective, they've not been able to figure out how to break the smaller one. Their own memories of whatever happened are incomplete, and they wanted to check hers. Presumably they were hesitant about just asking her based on her being the most resistant to individuality during the crash. Or maybe they're just dicks. Either way, they're shit out of luck, as 7 doesn't have those memories. Not consciously, anyway, but she'll have a go at seeing if she or the others have them backed up somewhere. The attempt is a bust. None of them have visible signs of tampering to the data they hold, but they all have a memory gap between the campfire and getting picked up by their Borg mates. 7's not ready to give up yet and goes to see Janeway, who's currently busy giving Paris and Kim a mild bollocking for getting into a brawl. Perhaps the real security concerns were the ones we met along the way. With them safely confined to quarters, we move our attention to 7. All 4 of them missing the same period of time smells a lot like more than coincidence, but she sees no reason why the collective itself would give a shit what 4 drones remember, not if it was just a standard pickup anyway. There is one more option for recovering the data though. She connects to their mini-collective. Whilst an unappealing prospect, she wants to try and help them. Which is how we all find ourselves with the Doctor in 7's cargo bay. His presence is somewhat of a formality, as while he can monitor them, there's not a lot he can do if shit goes south. With that resounding note of confidence, they all connect and have a nap. The Borg shipwreck survivors are standing around their campfire, presumably in power-saving mode. Except 7 anyway, who's receiving a signal of some sort and goes to check it out. Looks like it's from a fragment of the crashed ship, and more specifically, another drone. He's in a bad way, and as 7 assures him that he'll be fine, he proves her a liar by carking it. If she was hoping for reassurance from the others, then she's shit out of luck. She returns to the campfire to find the beacon they've built is beeping. The Borg are on their way, but the others have decided this plan is bollocks and they want out. Ignoring 7's orders to stay, they smash the beacon and scarf her, leaving her to wait on her own. The wait eventually proves too much for her, and she goes to find the others. A happy ending then, where they all escape together. Not quite. She finds Monocle's scarf first and poops green on him. Some injected Borg mini-bots give him a new connection and make him compliant. Schrödinger's labradoodle follows shortly after, making it 3 versus 1 with Robojoran. The newly reconnected drones go off to repair their beacon and await retrieval. Back in the present, it's fair to say this news is being received rather poorly. They've broken their link with 7 and are giving her a very stern talking to indeed. In fact, they can't seem to stop, and the doc asks Tuvok to help him drag everyone to sickbay. His formal diagnosis is that they're completely fucked. Breaking the connection with 7 has overloaded the tiny brainial implants she gave them back on the planet during the flashbacks. As an aside, the doc originally said the connection was organic, which runs contrary to the data we're being given now. We'll be generous and say the implant was small enough to be imperceptible and uses their brain to do most of the work. Regardless, the overload has proper bollocksed up their brains. The doc has a couple of options, but it's a bit of a bad news, worse news situation. He can remove the implants, which will give them the individuality they wanted, but it'll also kill them in about a month. The alternative will let them live out a full life, but only by returning them to the Borg. We move to Astrometrics, where she's talking the problem over with Chakotay for some reason. Not the character I'd have expected, but at least he's getting some airtime. Seven's leaning towards returning them to the Borg. From a purely mathematical position, it makes sense. 28 days at most, as opposed to potential decades, is not a difficult calculation. Chakotay prompts her to see beyond that by placing herself in the same position, an indeterminate period of existence as a drone or a month of life as an individual. Which is why she visits sick bay to tell the doc we shouldn't return them to the Borg. He objects, obviously, and Seven explains it in terms he can understand. Would he choose to be the default settings of his program, purely fulfilling a function, or who he is now with the freedoms he's gained? Do no harm is more than just maths. The three are in the mess hall experiencing their first moments of true individuality since being assimilated. Schrodinger's labradoodle is the first to depart, deciding he's going to spend his time exploring the station and its people. Monocle Scar's going to a nearby planet and wishes Seven well before he leaves. Robojoran tells Seven that she can understand her actions even if she can't forgive them, which is going to make the next month pretty fucking awkward as she wants to stay on Voyager. As Seven's working, Naomi again proves that she's one of the smartest people on the ship by checking up on her in Astrometrics, and we leave them to each other's company as we fly away. I decided that my former name was no longer appropriate. It's the line Seven uses when the group tells her that Seven isn't a name, and that sentence is doing a lot of work. In it, we see a glimpse of her complex attitude towards her existence pre-assimilation. Does she consider herself an extension of Annika Hansen, the Jadzia to Annika's Curzon, or is that person simply dead to her? How much of her rejecting the name is due to the resentment for her parents? It could simply be a logical choice. She spent more time as Seven than she has as Annika. But we've seen before that her logic is far from flawless when dealing with former familial ties, a fact shown by conversations about her parents in Dark Frontier. Perhaps those experiences have helped her conclude that family is not always a matter of biology. Found family is a topic spicy brains can often appreciate in my experience, and Seven's brain is very spicy indeed. Her bonding with Naomi is not unexpected, as I mentioned in the Season 5 summary. They're operating from a similar starting point with regards to socializing. But I wonder if there's more to it. A wish to prevent her from suffering the same trauma as Seven did when she was a child. Is the desire to be her family a way of processing the failure of her own guardians, much as Neelix's desire to protect her was a coping mechanism for what he saw as his own failure? Another example, then, of how the inclusion of Naomi as a recurring character allows us to explore aspects of others that we wouldn't normally get to see. Whether that was intentional or not, whoever thought of it still deserves some points. Beyond all of that, the episode itself focuses on some more of the bad shit that Seven did as a drone, though this time with the twist of actually being responsible for it. To an extent, anyway. I suspect most of us here wouldn't blame her for her actions, much as Robojoran could understand the reason, even without being able to forgive her. It also supports something I've said previously about the difference between data and experience. Seven had the knowledge that a lack of light cannot of itself be harmful, but the experience of being afraid of the dark as a child. The latter, one, contributing to her actions in subduing the other three. Come to think of it, perhaps that might be part of why she chose to call herself Seven, a desire to reject the scared child that Annika Hansen was, in favour of the powerful being capable of subduing any enemy if threatened. You can't be afraid of monsters if you're the monster. End of episode.
We could always shoot him.
Oh, sure. I'll just go ask a member of the crew if we can borrow their opposable thumbs.
Fair point. Well, we could strangle. Oh. That needs thumbs. How about stabbing? Oh. That needs thumbs too. Holy shit, not having thumbs makes this really difficult.
That's why I've not done it before now. I tried to frame him for murder once, but that dickhead Tuvok got him off.
Have you thought about just biting his throat out?
You do know there are only 2 dogs on the ship, right? I mean, it's not a massive pool of suspects, is it?
Maybe they haven't noticed we're dogs.
Yeah, 'cause we've been real subtle about that, haven't we? Woof.
Oh yeah. Balls.